The Boeing 787 Dreamliner has a stellar safety record. This is the first fatal crash. So what could have gone?
The crash of Air India Flight 171 on June 12, 2025 stands as one of the gravest aviation disasters in recent memory, marking not only a tragic loss of life, but also exposing intricate and deeply troubling systemic failures. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner, with an exceptional safety history since its introduction, experienced an almost unthinkable outcome, falling from the sky just seconds after takeoff. This moment did not only shatter the lives of those on board and on the ground, but also reverberated through institutions, regulatory agencies, and the broader public consciousness, raising unsettling questions about how safety, responsibility, and operational integrity are managed within high-stakes industries like commercial aviation. What made this crash particularly jarring was the profile of the aircraft involved. The Dreamliner had flown for over a decade without a single fatal crash. It represented modern engineering excellence, incorporating cutting-edge fly-by-wire systems and advanced redundancy protocols. Yet, that morning in Ahmedabad, something went catastrophically wrong. Witnesses observed that the plane failed to gain altitude after lifting off the runway and instead plunged downward with its landing gear still extended. CCTV footage captured the horrifying final moments of the descent as the plane tailed downward and disintegrated upon impact with a medical college housing block. The speed and violence of the crash left little time for evasive action, both for those on board and the civilians in the densely populated neighborhood below. Amid the destruction, only one individual on board survived, Vishwas Kumar Romesh, a British Indian businessman. His improbable survival became both a symbol of hope and a lens through which the enormity of the tragedy was seen more personally. Emerging from the wreckage dazed but mobile, clutching his boarding pass, he not only lived but later carried the coffin of his deceased brother, a task made almost surreal by his own miraculous escape. The image of this lone survivor, haunted but walking, became an indelible metaphor for the aftermath, a single figure moving through the ruins of collective loss. As emergency responders worked through smoke, debris, and chaos, the magnitude of destruction quickly became clear. Nearly every passenger and crew member perished, and the destruction on the ground extended the tragedy beyond the aircraft. Students asleep in hostels, doctors residing in staff quarters, and local residents became part of the casualty list. This dual-site devastation highlighted a previously underappreciated risk: the urban sprawl around critical aviation infrastructure. In cities like Ahmedabad, rapid expansion has brought residential and institutional buildings closer to runways, creating a scenario where even a minor accident could escalate into a large-scale catastrophe. The Indian urban planning community is now reassessing zoning laws and airport perimeter regulations, acknowledging that population density near takeoff and landing paths exponentially increases the stakes of aviation emergencies. In the immediate aftermath, attention turned to the possible causes. The deployment of the RAM air turbine, RAT, an emergency power system activated in cases of total electrical or engine failure, suggested a sudden and catastrophic systems failure. Data retrieved from black boxes indicated that the landing gear was never retracted, likely due to hydraulic failure. Combined with the eyewitness testimony of a Mayday call indicating insufficient thrust, a picture began to emerge of a flight that never had a fighting chance. The aircraft appears to have suffered dual engine failure or a severe systems malfunction right after liftoff, leaving the pilots with less than 2 minutes to react in an extremely high-pressure, low-altitude situation. However, the technical malfunctions only formed part of the story. Investigators from India, the UK, and the US, particularly the Air Accidents Investigation Branch, AAIB, and the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, quickly expanded their inquiry into human factors, regulatory compliance, and organizational culture. One of the most alarming discoveries related to pilot scheduling practices. Reports surfaced indicating that prior to the crash, pilots had been flying beyond the legally permitted duty hours, with multiple rosters breaching mandated rest periods. Crew fatigue, long known to impair cognitive function and decision-making, emerged as a potentially significant contributing factor. These revelations triggered swift action from the Indian Directorate General of Civil Aviation, DGCA. Officials were dismissed, and a nationwide inspection sweep of Boeing 787s was launched. Simultaneously, Air India announced fleet reductions and overhauls in crew rostering policies. Yet for many observers, these actions seemed reactive rather than proactive, underlining a deeper concern that operational pressures, cost-cutting, expansion goals, tight turnaround demands had overtaken safety as the primary priority. Whistleblower reports from maintenance staff suggested that systemic underreporting of mechanical anomalies and pressure to shorten servicing timelines were common. These pressures point toward a cultural failing, one where efficiency trumps caution, and where safety protocols are honored more in form than in function. Meanwhile, scrutiny turned to the regulatory framework that oversees Indian aviation. The DGCA, which plays both a supervisory and promotional role for the industry, found itself accused of being too lenient with flag carriers and failing to enforce rules with sufficient rigor. A growing chorus of experts, including former safety officers, began calling for the establishment of an independent investigative and regulatory body similar to the NTSB in the United States. Such a body would be structurally isolated from political and commercial pressures and empowered to conduct independent reviews, thereby restoring public confidence in oversight mechanisms. Families of victims began organizing as well. Their demands extended beyond financial restitution. They called for greater transparency, access to flight and maintenance records, stricter fatigue protocols, and institutional reforms that prioritize passengers over profit. Their advocacy group, the 171 Families Coalition for Air Safety, quickly became a vocal and poignant presence, insisting that systemic failure be met with systemic change. In a powerful gesture of solidarity and sorrow, Air India permanently retired the flight number AI-171, and work began on a public memorial to honor all those lost. The implications of the crash reverberated well beyond India. International carriers reassessed their code share arrangements with Air India, and insurance providers began revising policy terms for flights operated by Indian carriers from older airports. Travel agencies suspended package deals involving Air India legs, and customer confidence plummeted. Boeing and engine maker GE Aerospace also faced scrutiny, particularly over the Dreamliner's engines, one of which had recently undergone servicing. Though no definitive mechanical error has been pinned to these overhauls yet, the timing of maintenance work has prompted a broader industry audit of documentation and component checks. From an educational perspective, the tragedy has catalyzed important changes. Flight schools are incorporating Flight 171 into their curricula not for dramatization, but as a real-world case study in how rapidly systems can fail and how high the cost of even momentary lapses can be. Training simulations now replicate scenarios with dual engine loss on takeoff, placing pilots in high-stress decision-making situations to hone instincts and reinforce procedures. Instructors emphasize not only technical reaction times, but also stress resilience, cockpit communication, and situational awareness under extreme duress. The crash has also exposed generational divides within Air India's workforce. While newer pilots and technicians tend to be trained under global standards and are keen to introduce best practices, older institutional habits and internal hierarchies often stifle their influence. These intergenerational tensions between tradition and modernization, hierarchy and transparency, are becoming increasingly visible as internal audits reveal inconsistencies in how safety concerns are escalated and addressed. Internationally, diplomatic complexities have emerged as well, with a significant portion of the victims hailing from countries like the UK, Canada, and UAE. Those governments have demanded more involvement in the investigation process. India, while allowing observation, retains control over the inquiry, leading to calls for more transparent, multilateral investigative protocols and incidents involving multinational passengers. Legal firms in the UK are building cases that explore whether Air India violated EU safety directives, potentially exposing the airline to civil suits and broader legal consequences. Media coverage of the crash, too, has come under scrutiny. While some outlets provided critical reporting, others sensationalized the event, focusing disproportionately on the lone survivor and dramatizing the final moments. Families have expressed frustration over this narrative distortion, emphasizing that every life lost held equal weight and that the media's responsibility extends to respectful and balanced coverage. In response, community-driven digital memorials have begun surfacing, each telling the stories of the individuals on board: students, newlyweds, doctors, parents. Each narrative a rebuke to the idea that they can be summarized solely by their death. Religious institutions across India and the diaspora have played a unique role in offering communal spaces for mourning. Vigils, interfaith services, and rotating memorial altars have provided solace to the grieving. These spiritual responses, while outside formal emergency response mechanisms, have filled an emotional void for many affected communities and affirmed the role of faith traditions in national healing processes. At an infrastructural level, the disaster has forced airport authorities to reconsider emergency readiness in densely populated urban zones. While fire engines reached the site quickly, narrow roads and panicked crowds slowed access, prompting new drills that focus on interagency coordination and crowd control. Authorities are also reviewing their ability to deal with post-crash environmental hazards, such as soil contamination from aviation fuel and airborne toxins. Environmental teams are now monitoring the Mini Nagar area for long-term impacts on drinking water and local vegetation. Within Air India's operations center, quiet changes are taking place. Engineers are now being cross-certified to prevent knowledge silos. Weekly audits are being implemented, and the new mantra, "Every flight, every life," has been emblazoned across training facilities and maintenance hangars. Whether this represents genuine transformation or mere optics remains to be seen. History has shown that institutional change often requires not only policy but persistence, and the key test will be whether these efforts endure beyond the current media and political cycle. The airline industry as a whole is watching closely. The incident has reignited discussions at the International Civil Aviation Organization (ICAO) and International Air Transport Association (IATA) about mandatory reporting of critical data from takeoff and climb phases and the need for real-time telemetry data streaming to ground stations. These proposals, once considered cost-prohibitive or technologically ambitious, are gaining traction as airlines and regulators recognize that relying solely on black boxes retrieved post-crash leaves crucial windows of time time opaque and unexplained. In pilot forums worldwide, Flight 171 has become a touchstone for serious reflection. Discussions now range from ergonomic cockpit design to checklist usability during abnormal aircraft attitudes. These exchanges are not theoretical, they are practical efforts by professionals who understand that the line between routine and disaster can be crossed in seconds, and that the only defense is rigorous, relentless preparedness. At the heart of this disaster lies a deeper societal reckoning. The event has disrupted the national narrative of Indian aviation's modernization and growth, forcing a confrontation with the reality that infrastructure, policy, and culture must evolve together. Economic growth must not come at the expense of safety. Technological advancement is meaningless if not matched by ethical stewardship, and confidence cannot be bought. It must be earned flight by flight, choice by choice. As India's parliament considers resolutions for a national day of remembrance and scholarships in honor of those lost, the legacy of Flight 171 is still being written. It will be told not only in regulatory updates and policy changes, but in quieter moments, in the empty chairs at family dinners, in the paused academic records of students who never returned, and in the hearts of those who now see every plane differently. Trust, once broken, is difficult to restore, but the enduring pain of June 12th can be turned into purpose if the industry, government, and society commit not merely to promising safety, but to practicing it with unwavering diligence every single day.